On the coldest night of December, Ralph found a cat at his door, its fur crystallized with ice, tapping desperately against the glass. For 2 weeks, the seemingly well-groomed stray barely touched its food and kept searching every corner of his house, its body strangely cold despite the heating. The truth behind her nightly visits would shatter his heart forever. If you'd like to hear more stories like this one, consider subscribing and turning on notifications. A mysterious visitor. Winter had descended on the small town of Millbrook with unusual ferocity. The streets were empty, windows frosted over, and the few brave souls who ventured outside hurried to their destinations. Collars turned up against the biting wind. In his cozy house at the edge of town, Ralph Mitchell sat in his favorite armchair, warming his hands around a steaming cup of tea. The house was quiet, too quiet. Ralph had lived alone for the past 5 years, and while he had grown used to the silence, there were nights like this when the emptiness seemed to echo through the rooms. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows, as the temperature continued to plummet well below freezing. It was just past midnight when he heard it, a faint but distinct tapping sound coming from his back door. At first, he dismissed it as a branch blown by the wind, but the tapping continued, rhythmic and deliberate. Setting down his book, Ralph made his way to the glass door, expecting to find nothing more than shadows playing tricks on his mind. What he saw instead made him freeze in place. There, illuminated by the porch light, was a cat. Its fur was dotted with tiny ice crystals that sparkled in the dim light, and its paw was raised against the glass, tapping with an almost human-like persistence. The animal's eyes met Ralph's, and in them, he saw something that transcended the usual wariness of a stray. There was an unmistakable plea for help. The rescue without hesitation, Ralph opened the door. The cat didn't bolt or hesitate. It walked straight in, as if it had been invited. The bitter cold followed it inside, and Ralph quickly shut the door, watching as the animal took a few uncertain steps into his living room. The cat was shivering violently now, its legs barely able to support its weight. Ralph rushed to get some towels from his bathroom, warming them quickly in his dryer. As he gently wrapped the cat in the warm towels, he could feel how dangerously cold its body was. The cat didn't resist his care, instead pressing closer to the warmth of his hands. Ralph turned up the thermostat and created a makeshift bed near the heating vent, using more warm towels and a soft blanket. He'd never cared for an animal before, but instinct told him he needed to raise this cat's body temperature slowly and carefully. For over an hour, he sat beside the trembling creature, periodically replacing the cooled towels with fresh warm ones. Up close, the cat was even more puzzling. Despite being out in the freezing weather, its gray and white fur appeared well-groomed beneath the ice crystals, suggesting it wasn't an ordinary stray. Yet there was no collar, no sign of ownership. Even after an hour of warming efforts, its body remained unnaturally cold, much colder than seemed possible for a living creature. Acting on instinct, Ralph went to his kitchen and opened a can of tuna he had in his pantry. Any stray cat would be desperate for food on a night like this. But when he placed the bowl in front of his unexpected guest, the cat merely sniffed it and turned away. Concerned, Ralph tried again with some leftover chicken from his dinner. The cat took 2 small bites before retreating to inspect the house. Strange behavior. There was something methodical about the way the cat moved through each room. It wasn't the casual exploration of a curious feline. This was a search. The cat checked every corner, every possible hiding spot, as if looking for something specific. When it found nothing, it would pause, seem to gather its strength, and continue its inspection. Ralph spent that first night watching the strange visitor, growing increasingly worried about its behavior. Despite his best efforts with the warm towels and heated room, the cat's body temperature remained unnaturally low. It seemed to be growing weaker by the hour. Yet there was a determination in its movements that suggested it couldn't rest, couldn't settle. The next morning, Ralph began his search for the cat's owner. He walked through the neighborhood, knocking on doors and showing pictures he had taken on his phone. But no one recognized the cat. Some neighbors remembered seeing it around recently, but none could recall it before the cold snap hit. Each day that passed brought new concerns. The cat's eating habits remained minimal. It would take a few bites of food and then return to its restless searching. Ralph found himself staying up late into the night, watching over his mysterious guest. He'd never had a pet before, had never considered himself an animal person, but something about this cat's quiet determination touched him deeply. Refusing to consider taking it to a shelter, Ralph instead went shopping. He bought everything a cat might need: a plush bed, a heating pad, premium cat food, and a litter box. When he set up the bed with the heating pad in his guest room, the cat showed the first real interest in anything since arriving. It spent several hours there, though it never fully relaxed. Growing concerns. As days turned into weeks, Ralph's concern grew into genuine fear. The cat slept more, but ate less. Its search of the house had become less frequent, but more thorough, as if it was running out of time to find whatever it was looking for. The animal's body temperature remained worryingly low, despite the heating pad and warm environment. Ralph began researching veterinarians, quickly discovering a harsh reality of small-town life. The only vet clinic in Millbrook had closed for 2 weeks while the owner, Dr. Thompson, recovered from surgery. The next nearest vet was in Carson City, over 3 hours away on winter roads that were becoming increasingly treacherous with each snowfall. His first call to the Carson City clinic connected him with Dr. Anderson, who listened carefully as Ralph described the cat's symptoms. The veterinarian asked detailed questions about the animal's temperature, eating habits, and behavior. When Ralph mentioned the constant searching behavior and loss of appetite, there was a note of concern in her voice. She asked him to monitor the cat closely and call back the next day with any changes. These daily phone consultations became Ralph's lifeline. Each morning, he would report new observations to Dr. Anderson: the cat's weakening condition, her increasingly labored breathing, the way she barely moved from her bed. The vet guided him through basic care techniques, but Ralph could sense her growing worry during each call. On their latest call, after Ralph described how the cat had refused food for nearly 24 hours, Dr. Anderson's tone became urgent. She told him plainly that without immediate medical intervention, the cat might not survive another day. The receptionist's warnings about the Snowden mountain pass now seemed irrelevant. He had to find a way to get her to Carson City. The miracle: over the next 2 days, the cat's condition deteriorated rapidly. She barely moved from her bed now, her breathing becoming more labored. The heating pad seemed to provide little comfort, and she refused even the smallest morsels of food. Ralph spent hours sitting beside her, watching her chest rise and fall, noticing how she would occasionally stretch and shift uncomfortably. After another sleepless night of watching over her, Ralph made a decision. At first light, he would attempt the treacherous drive through the mountain pass. Weather warnings or not, he knew it was risky, but the alternative seemed worse. That evening, he packed his car with emergency supplies: blankets, flashlights, a first aid kit. He found an old pet carrier in his neighbor's garage and brought it inside to prepare for the morning journey. The weather forecast warned of another incoming storm, but his mind was made up. That night, Ralph went to check on his mysterious guest one more time. The guest room was dark and quiet, too quiet. His heart racing, he switched on the light, fearing the worst. But what he saw stopped him in his tracks. There, in the plush bed he had bought, lay the cat. And nestled against her were 3 tiny kittens, their eyes still closed, their tiny bodies pressed close to their mother for warmth. The mystery of the cat's behavior suddenly became crystal clear. She hadn't been sick or injured. She had been pregnant, desperately searching for a safe, warm place to give birth. In that moment, Ralph understood everything. The constant searching of the house. She had been looking for the perfect birthing spot. Her cold body temperature and minimal eating, typical signs of impending labor. Her choice of his house, she had somehow sensed she would find safety here. The mother cat looked up at Ralph with those same eyes that had pleaded with him that first night. But now they held something different: trust, and perhaps even gratitude. She had chosen him out of all the houses in the neighborhood to help her bring her kittens into the world. In the days that followed, Ralph's quiet house transformed. The silence was replaced by tiny mews and the gentle purring of a contented mother. He watched in amazement as the kittens grew stronger each day, their eyes opening to the world that their mother had fought so hard to make safe for them. What had started as a tap on his window on the coldest night of winter had become something miraculous. This cat hadn't just found shelter for her babies. She had given Ralph something he didn't even know he was missing: a family. And would you have opened your door to a desperate stranger on a freezing winter night?